Well, there's another one of the particles that some people have predicted could be created is something called a Higgs boson. I don't really know a heck of a lot about what it would be, other than a mediating force.
Does anybody,
particles.
Out of curiosity, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but does anybody know what that particle would be or what it's going to look like?
No, I don't seem to come up with any strong theory anywhere as to what it should be. I've had some Nobel Prize winners have referred to it as the toilet particle because they don't believe it at all, and others think it's something that will be an answer to all of the questions of the universe, and hence the name the God particle. But it's just I don't think that there's going to be any resolution there whatsoever. And even if they come up with discovering something called the Higgs boson, I don't think it's going to answer all the questions of the universe the way it's been touted.
Would you equate that? Would you equate that to the supercomputer on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that gave us the answer is 42, but what's the question? It
might very well be. Yes, I don't know.
Because
speaking of supercomputers, I saw that China has now got the fastest supercomputer out there. They've surpassed the Cray supercomputer, and by linking up a whole lot of computer processing power. What it's going to be used for, I don't know. China does a lot of phenomenal things. And we don't hear too much about it in the Western media.
No, and you won't either, because China owns pretty much everything here, as far as that's concerned. And to be quite honest with you, they are much akin. I kind of see a second Cold War developing now, and God only knows where that's going to take us. And I'm interested to get your opinion on the China-U.S. relations as far as where you see things headed, based on your life experience and what you've seen, because we follow that and current events a lot on this show, and we value the opinions of all our guests. So sometimes we may go off topic, and when we do, don't be surprised. But
well, yeah, go ahead. I see that there's a tremendous opportunity. That China is out dwarfs the U.S. by 4 to 1, I think, in terms of population, and at equal numbers of persons having college degrees and so forth compared to the U.S. So there is a tremendous amount of opportunity in China, but I think China has a tremendous amount of opportunity for continuing. What I'd like to see is tourism. I would like to see more Chinese visitors coming to the U.S. and more U.S. visitors going to China to learn from each other. I know China does tremendous amounts of engineering marvels. We saw that in the Olympics. I just got through looking at a nice little thing on the internet on some of the beautiful bridges that they have made in China. Just something like 30 different kinds of really interesting architecture, huge bridges and such. So it is a very developing, burgeoning country, and there's an opportunity for them to share their knowledge and wealth by sending their tourists over to the U.S. and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Right now it's always been, the U.S. goes to other countries as tourism. We drop our dollars off, and then they go and buy up the U.S. or whatever. I'd like to see it the other way around for a while.
Yeah, it'd be nice, but unfortunately, our non-representing representatives, they don't foster that type of environment. As a matter of fact, they promote things like the manufacturing sector to go overseas and to partake of the cheap labor, and
right.
So that in and of itself is an issue. And what do? You think about it. Okay, so let's enact tariffs. Let's just put tariffs on all Chinese goods and everything coming into the United States. Well, what does that spark off? You know what I mean? And to be quite honest with you, if the United States says, well, you know what, we believe that our fiat currency actually means something, and we also believe that if we default on this debt, which is baseless, outside. speaking of science, we can apply scientific principle to our currency and say, well, I'm going to pose Griff's question. What's a dollar? A dollar is a concept because there is no dollar. I was talking, or as a matter of fact, from Walmart, Doc, I got a $10 bill back in change, and when I did, it was a $10 bill issued from 1950, and the $10 bill or the federal, yeah, I know, it was crazy. Well, and I again, Griff, I apologize. The Federal Reserve note, it said $10, pay the bearer on demand down at the bottom, and the pay, this is note as legal tender for all debts, public and private, and it said, and can be redeemed for legal money at any Federal Reserve bank or bank. Anybody that deals with the Federal Reserve, you can get legal money. And here I am thinking, legal money? Well, what do I have in my hand?
And you got to see the paper.
Exactly right. But that's all it is. So my question is why not exercise a little? Let's have an exercise in sovereignty where we say, you know what, guys, I'm going to take this eraser and I'm going to go to these the balance sheets over here and I'm going to erase it. Doesn't mean anything anyway because it's baseless. It's all fiat. There's nothing. It's all paper. It's a concept. So now, of course, the drawback is we in the United States would have to live within our means and say, well, you know what? People probably aren't going to want to trade with us too much in the short term because we've just kind of went and said, guys, guess what? That stuff isn't worth anything and we're not honoring it or anything else. But we have the capability in the United States of doing that. We just have to get the titanium gonads to be able to go and say, look, we're the United States. We're sovereign. We don't answer to the UN. We don't answer to CERN scientists over in their little happy fairy tale land over there. And this is how we're going to go about this. And I really, truly feel that short of the country coming down or going down in a fiery crash, which is where we're headed right now. The plane's kind of out of fuel and doing this little circular spiral, downward spiral to the ground. That's the only way that we're going to be able to capture that American dominance anymore. And I don't know. What's your opinion? Do you see this country actually turning its act around and going in a positive direction? Do you see anything like a wake up to the point where that would happen?
Yeah, well, that comes to, I guess, a philosophy on life, and I was taught from an early age to be an eternal optimist. And so, yes, I see that we always have that possibility. I think we have to be careful that we don't do what Germany did back in to get out of the Depression. They just started printing more and more money, and pretty soon it was worthless. And that's one way, you just buy your way out. And so there's that concept that you don't want to be doing that or giving that idea. And to keep the dollar, you're right, it is a concept, but you want to keep it solid and stable. So if you go around and just start saying, okay, well, we're going to erase the debt here and erase the debt there, and so forth, you undermine that confidence. And I don't see that we're going to go back to having silver certificates with the way they used to be in the 1950s. I'm surprised it was issued in 1950. It wasn't a silver certificate. The dollar bills were, I know, that they used to, you used to be able to redeem them for actual silver, is what they said on them.
Right. No, absolutely right.
And now, you can redeem it for a square inch of soil or something. I don't know.
Right, but I mean, in reality, though, I kind of view like our currency and our monetary policy, Griff, like scientific theory, in a way, because nothing's proven. You know what I mean? It's all. It's
smoke and mirrors, Joe. The whole thing is smoke and mirrors. And as long as the people don't understand the smoke and mirrors, then it'll continue on for a while. It's beyond the conceptual ability of the minds of the people to comprehend what we're saying, apparently.
Well, everybody wants to feel comfortable with where they're at. They don't want to think that, they've worked hard all their lives and they have so much money saved in the bank and they've got ownership to this and that and everything else, and all of a sudden it's of no value. So everyone wants to continue with the status quo, or to a certain extent, and without rocking the boat. So that's what CERN itself is the same way. That's why they have their hand out and constantly begging the governments for money. That's their only source of income. And as long as that keeps on coming in, they're happy. And the way in which they keep that coming in is basically they tout everything that they do as this great positive value. Notwithstanding what the risk might be, and that's why I'm curious now that they've come up with this thing on the antimatter. They've been making antimatter there for decades, and all of a sudden it's now that they're releasing this information about it, and it's like, well, okay, supposedly they made some little breakthrough on getting this magnetic model, but they have to constantly create this hype of how great and positive it is in order to keep on getting this money being handed to them, and it's they don't print their own money, so
and that's interesting.
Maybe that's their next step.
And that's interesting that you say that, because I had no idea that they were making antimatter for decades. I mean, that's just that totally blows my mind. And if that's the case, then what do you think? Do you think that this was a PR stunt almost to try and secure their funding, or to show some sort of positive progress?
That's what I think it is to a large extent, And sure, maybe they did come up with something, but they didn't give the time as to when this occurred. I believe it was like a couple of years ago. I don't think it happened at the same time that this is being released to the general public. I think that they said, okay, here's a good time to release this information to make us look good, while they're waiting on the results on these lead collisions they've been doing, and then they're going to have some downtime. So they have to be constantly in the mind's eye of the public, the way they perceive it now, and so I'm sort of wondering what they're going to release next, what other little
good Lord,
project off to the side they might be doing.
That's one of those things. Do I want to know? I don't know. Yeah, of course I want to know, but they're definitely up to some very interesting shenanigans over there. And here's another question too. And have you seen or heard of the spirals that are showing up in the sky?
I saw one where there was a spiral rocket down. I think it was was it a Russian rocket? I think it was a Russian rocket.
It was. That's what the line of that's what the explanation was. But there's been footage. There's been footage of them showing up in other places as well. And me being a layman again, do you foresee or do you think a particle accelerator can it manifest something outside of CERN, outside of the ring? Can it actually create something like that in the sky?
I don't know of any mechanism. I wouldn't put it beyond the realm of possibility that these large magnetic fields that are generated for this might have some kind of synergistic effect with the Earth's magnetic field and a feedback mechanism, and so forth. But to generate that when there's a plausible explanation, that to me doesn't seem, a real reasonable explanation for those. Because we know what a missile with one little rocket that's misfiring would do. It would form a spiral just like that.
Right. No, and I understand that. I was in the military, and I've seen missiles actually do that. Yeah. And I understand that, but this was different. And the other thing was there was the spiral over Norway. There was a spiral over China, and and like I said again, I've been a participant in missile shoots. And I've seen them where they go out of control and they form that spiral. But this was different in that you could tell that it wasn't explosive energy that was causing the spiral. You know what I mean? When I say that, I mean the exhaust from a missile. And that's where I had the burn or the problem, is because I've seen it before, I have a frame of reference, and